Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to get into next. And I do want to hear about your land business and everything as well. But, when it comes to the why of the industry or the why of the business or what keeps people motivated and moving each day, I find that so important. And I try to ask every client that comes to me, like, what is their main motivation? Because typically, if it's just money, those aren't the folks that will stick with you, right? So if you say I fund somebody's deal and they're just hoping to make a little bit of cash at the end of it, like they usually have no problem disappearing into the night if the property defaults or something like that. They're not usually concerned about their image or the longevity of their company. Um, so I much prefer to work with somebody who has some greater purpose. And, we really align because I'm a big service guy. I love really trying to build other people up around me, give away what was freely given to me for the most part. Like most of the valuable information I have, I didn't, pay an attorney to give it to me or anything like that. I did pay for a guru at one point, a couple grand, and they did give me some good foundational information, but that's not what's made my career. Um, so yeah, that feeling of like, okay, if I can work with somebody who's also motivated to help other people, not only do I feel more confident in them just in a one deal by deal basis, but also like this community of land investors is pretty tight. You mentioned hiking in LA. I know who you're fucking talking about, right? So, what I'm really looking for as well when I bring in a new client or really a new partner into our operations um, is it the sort of person that I can take bigger and bigger deals with? Like we also
Mm.
find deals, and I don't really want to be the operator of a deal. So if we find a deal in-house, I would still want to go into my network and be like, does anyone want to JV on this and be the operator?
Yep.
Things like that. So I just think there's so much more opportunity for mutual growth as well as, yeah, the reduced headache of like, are we just going to sit someday and stare at each other with lawyers in the room suing each other or something stupid like that? So that was like that's a huge bonus for me. I really admire that. I really admire people who freely give. I think it's so rare in our industry. Most people freely give, but then there's something they're waiting to take from you behind or sell
Mm.
you after or whatever. And
Mm.
that's, you know, it's it's such a challenge in terms of like viewing humans as humans when there's that sort of money arrangement always baked into it. So
Yep. Yep.
kudos to you on that. I 100% agree that that's the path to take.
Well, and I think it comes down to asking people what their why is. For there's a lot of folks, and I'll come to sort of where I've gotten to in terms of wanting to be of service in a second, because I think like there's a lot of folks who are really struggling right now financially, and they're figuring out where they're going to make their next payment, or maybe they have a spouse who's sick and they have medical debt or student debt, right? And so, I totally respect if people are like, I just need to make money right now. Like that's where they're at, like totally cool, right? Um, I feel very blessed to be in a financial position where I can ask myself, what do I want out of life other than just being, making more
Right.
money? And it's just it's a place of privilege in a lot of ways. um we created Bonfire with our goal with it was to enable everyday people to have access to commercial real estate. Right? Why? Because look at in our country we have these rules around accredited investors,
Hmm.
that say that basically you have to have $300,000 of salary or $1 million net worth outside of your house to be able to invest in institutional real estate, venture capital, or private equity, right? So what happens? The rich get richer, and 90% of the population aren't even able to invest in these asset classes that have gone through the roof over the last several decades, right? But so anyway, that's a whole other topic. But we created Bonfire as a way to enable everyday people to invest in commercial real estate. And one of the sort of highlights of my career was like when we launched our minimum viable product. It was this asset in North Carolina, and we had people just writing to us being like, "I'm a cab driver in Jaipur, India, and I now own a piece of real estate in the U.S. of A." Right? And just enabling people to have access to assets, because why? We all have, people have their salaries, that's great, but the way people build wealth is through asset accumulation. And I saw with land, there's this opportunity to help people get off of just the treadmill of renting and
Hmm.
not owning assets, and actually tangibly be able to own an asset at a much lower price point, who don't typically qualify for seller financing.
Yep.
right? And so we have this amazing ability to help folks and give them hope to actually own assets that if they buy correctly, are going to appreciate over time significantly, and learn the power of compound, growth, right? And that's kind of where smart land investors comes in, is I want to teach people at least, what I think of smart land investors, and maybe other people have different opinions, which is totally fine, but at least like how not to make mistakes.
Right.
Thinking that you're buying a piece of property and it's landlocked, or there's no legal access, or the slope is so steep that no one's ever going to buy it again, right? Or the mineral rights have been sold away, or titles clouded, right? Like all these things that I've made mistakes on in my career. My hope is that other people don't have to make them.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I feel like having informed buyers is the key to repeat buyers. I don't think a lot of people know this, but like you can definitely have repeat buyers in areas. I mean, I have a guy who calls me regularly and just wants to know what cool land projects I
Yeah.
have because he's like me.